to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm doing lesser known female-fronted hard rock and heavy metal from the 80s, part 3. So already up to part 3. I think it's going to be another couple of parts as well, because as I've been going through my collection, getting ready for these episodes, I've realised there's a lot more in my collection than I first thought. Now, Dan from Off the Charts joined me for part 2, which was great, and he showed some of the records he had in his collection that sort of fit that category. Thanks for that, Dan. One of my most watched episodes so far. So thanks again for that. Although I'm not sure if it's you. Maybe it was the sexy Lorraine Lewis thumbnail. But no, I'm going to say it's you, Dan. All right. So anyway, let's get on with it. So so part 3. Let's start with this one here. Now this one is Betsy. This came out in 1988 on Metal Blade, self-titled. Really good. It reminds me a little bit of like a female-fronted Rat, maybe slightly heavier. They definitely got more commercial on this album. Now this is their debut album as Betsy, but the band used to be called Bitch. So the singer here is Betsy, but her last name is Bitch, and alias anyway. And so initially the band was called Bitch, and then for understandable reasons they thought let's maybe change the name to Betsy, and they released this album under that name. The hype sticker here says new name, new approach, following hot on the heels of the Bitch is back. Yeah, so they do then put in brackets formerly Bitch. They then, after this album, they then did actually go back to the name Bitch. They released an EP, but I don't have any Bitch records. I got the Betsy one, and I like it. So I might have to hunt down some of the Bitch stuff. But this is really good. Worth checking out. All right, next up. Oh, and also one interesting thing too about this album, the first track. And the first couple tracks are my two favourites, but You Want It, You Got It is a song co-written with Bruce Turgeon, who has he's written with Lou Gramm and been in Shadow King and Warrior. A really good songwriter, actually. Check out some of the stuff he's done, solo work he's done as well. Really good. And that's a really good song. On that song that he co-wrote is a really good one. Opens up the side one. All right, next up. Fairly well known, but I'm still going to say it qualifies as lesser known because they didn't really get massive success. And it's Hellion and Screams in the Night. So I think this is actually really their first full-length album. They'd released like a mini album prior to this. They're the guys. Three guys, and of course Anne Boleyn is the vocalist here on the back. Now this is a completely new lineup apart from Anne. On the EP she had a different lineup, but supposedly the rest of the band left her because they felt like having a female vocalist fronting their heavy metal band wasn't going to be commercially successful, which might seem a bit weird these days, but back in the 80s I can imagine that might have been the thought. So they sort of took off and formed their own band. So she had to kind of reform the band again, and she got this guy Chet Thompson. He's been in a few projects. You might be aware of him. Supposedly Greg Pecker also once played for Dokken, but I don't think on any studio albums. But it's this one's released on Music for Nations. I know Anne Boleyn, the vocalist, started up New Renaissance Records and has released Hellion's material on that and other bands as well. See, back in the 80s when she started up that record label, some quite well-known bands like Sepultura released albums on New Renaissance Records. So that was quite a successful label that she had going there. She's also had a song produced by Ronnie James Dio, or Hellion did, just before that album came out. They definitely had they had some things going on. Didn't quite get to massive success, but they've still been Hellion have still been releasing albums throughout the 2000s. Not that much recently. I know Anne Boleyn now works as a lawyer, so I guess that's keeping her pretty busy and specialising in women's rights. All right. Next up, we've got Zed Yago and Pilgrimage. Now, this is an interesting one. This is, I think they're a German band. Pretty sure about that. This came out on RCA. Now, this is actually the US release of Pilgrimage. So, it's got a different track listing to the European release. Quite different. So, what happened was, this is actually their second album, but for the US release of Pilgrimage, they've combined the songs from the first album, some of the songs, and some of the songs that were going to be that are on Pilgrimage onto this album. So this US version has songs from their debut album and also a selection of songs that made the European version of Pilgrimage. So if you want all the Zed Yago songs, you better to get the European press of Pilgrimage and also then pick up their debut album, and you'll have all different songs. Okay. If you get this and you get their debut album, you'll find, so if you get the US version, you'll find that there are some songs from the debut album that are on here, like Zed Yago, that's, and Rocking for the Nation, I think, which are great songs that are on this version. They're also on their debut album, which is, I think, just self-titled. Actually, maybe it isn't, I'm not sure. But it's... yeah, so I've only got the American version, and I don't have their debut album, so I'm not that worried. I quite like in some ways that this is almost like a compilation, so their first two albums it's got a lot of their better tracks, I'd have to say. It is missing one song from their first album that I really like, Rebel Ladies. I haven't got that one. That's a really good song, but otherwise I'm probably not that fussed about missing some of the songs from their first album, and also some of the songs that aren't on here that are on the European version. But it's got some. It's kind of, if you like your Warlock, definitely good chance you're going to like the Zed Yago. For me, I like, they've got a song called Zed Yago. That's really good. That opens up on this version of the album, the American version. It opens up side one. Rocking for the Nation is really good. Actually, the whole first side on here is really killer. Pioneer of the Storm, Achilles Heel. Really great riffs that kick off each of those songs. She then went on and lead vocalist then went on to form a band called Velvet Viper. Juta is her name. She's the vocalist. Here's a picture of the band there. Yeah, Juta. Then she went on to form Velvet Viper, and I think they've released a few albums. They've actually gone back and re-recorded a lot of the Zed Yago songs as well, so you can find them. Zed Yago songs, like on Spotify, you'll find them, but they'll be under the name Velvet Viper. But if you like the sort of Warlock European type metal, check out Zed Yago. All right, next up, this is definitely lesser known. This is Alexa, and it's just self-titled. Terrible album cover for this is hard rock, but you wouldn't know it. You'd think it would be like some sort of pop album, which I guess, as I've talked about before, sometimes with the female fronted, especially the solo artists, sometimes it's hard to differentiate, like a little bit like Fiona. Well, how am I going to know that this is a hard rock album, not a pop album? This looks like a pop album. I think they could have done something. She's you can find a few pictures of her online. Very attractive lady. No, they could have made her look a little bit hair metal or something, or had a backing band or something in here that tells you, this is a hard rocking album. The only clue is that the producer's Paul Sabu. Paul Sabu is from Only Child, Kid Glove. He's done solo work as well, and he's a very good songwriter, producer. And so he's done a lot of the songwriting and production, and it's just good 80s hard rock. Not super heavy, but Fiona is a good comparison. I'd compare it to that. Even Lita Ford, that sort of thing. But yeah, worth checking out. And yeah, anything that Paul Sabu did in the 80s is yeah, good quality stuff. And so he's had a hand in the production and songwriting. So yeah, I suggest checking that one out. Now, also talking of Paul Sabu, he did the production, not the songwriting. The ladies' Precious Metal, they can write their own songs, but he did the. I think he might have helped with one or two songs, I think. But yeah, he did the production on this one. This is That Kind of Girl. They did another album, I think, or yeah, I think there's one album prior to this as well, which I don't have, and there's a mini album also. They were around for a while. They started up, I think, mid to early 80s. And yeah, so it's female fronted, but actually the whole band is females. So a little bit like Vixen, I suppose, right? Which is quite unusual, not easy to find bands from the 80s that are all female. Yeah, and it's 80s hard rock, not heavy at all. Their next album, I think, is their best one. This is just self-titled. It's called Precious Metal, and a couple of songs off here that are interesting. Mr. Big Stuff, they did a music video for that one, which features Donald Trump in the music video, and the song Trouble is their best song. Really great song. Check that song out. It's called Trouble, and it's actually co-written by Nancy Wilson from Heart. So she did she co-wrote that song, and it's a really good song, really good. All right, next up, this is definitely again a lesser known one, but it's a bit surprising that it didn't get much attention. This is Envy and Ain't It a Sin. Now I say it's a bit surprising because it's produced by Dee Snider. It's on Atlantic Records. It came out in 1987. It's got two females in the band, and yeah, just one of them does the lead vocals. The other one is on guitar and backing vocals. Ain't It a Sin? The title tracks are really good. Yeah, otherwise, to be honest, it's not an album I've played a lot, but it's worth checking out, and it's interesting too that Dee Snider had a hand in it. I don't really know too much else other than the fact that he did the production. Yeah, and he did also, he did help quite a bit actually. Looking at the credits here, quite a bit with the songwriting. At least it seems to be in every have a songwriting credit on every song. So had a part to play with it. The inside, I guess that came out pretty much around the same time as Love Is for Suckers. So it could have been something he was starting up just as Twisted Sister was sort of breaking up. Anyway, next up, another band produced by someone famous. This is Private Life. So I've got both their albums. They only released 2 albums. This is actually their second one. It's called Private Life. And this one here, which is called Shadows. Yeah, that one there is called Shadows. That's their first album. Yeah, and they're both produced by Eddie Van Halen. So Eddie Van Halen doing the production on these albums. Now, he doesn't help with any of the songwriting, supposedly. I don't think he's got any credits on here. I don't think there's any guitar solos from him. They probably didn't really, it would have been a good, you think if you're going to help with the production, just throwing a bit of guitar work in there just would maybe help with publicity and so forth. But they have got a really good guitar player on here, Danny Johnson. He does the guitar work. He's done quite a lot of session work and quite a well-known guitar player. Quite a lot of good songs actually on this album. I've created a Spotify playlist for the bands that I'm profiling on today's episode, so go and check out the link. I'll put the link in the description, and you'll notice there's quite a few from Private Life that have made the playlist. I just basically chose some of the best songs from the albums. Now, some albums aren't on Spotify. So if you're wondering why, for example, Envy's not on there, that's because they're not on Spotify. I couldn't find them on Spotify. But yeah, Private Life are on there, both their albums, and yeah, there's a few tracks on there I put on the playlist that are really good. Supposedly Eddie and his wife at the time, Valerie, I think they were like at a bar or something, and they saw the band playing, and Eddie was really impressed by the vocalist Kelly, and she does have a great voice. Heard her singing and thought, he'd be interested in working with the band, working with her. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know if it was her and then they put a band together or what the deal was there, but yeah, he heard her singing and was interested in putting a band together or getting the band together and doing production. So they did 2 albums. I think by this one here, when it came out in 1990, yeah, it's starting to sound a little bit dated. It's not really. I mean, that kind of music was still successful, but it was starting to get to the end, wasn't it? And yeah, there's some good songs though. There, like I said before, "Touch Me," which starts off track side 1. Track 1, side 1 is really good. There's a Van Morrison cover, "Domino," on here. "Communication," that's a good song. Yeah, but more famous for their producer rather than for the band itself. But yeah, worth checking out. All right, next up, this is a band called, I think, Runestaff is how you say it. Self-titled, one and done. I'm pretty sure this band, one and done band, UK band. Runestaff. I don't know. I was like, what's a Runestaff? It's kind of like I think it might be taken from like a fantasy, early 70s fantasy novel, but I'm not really sure. But it's female fronted, and this came out on Heavy Metal Records. Really not the greatest cover. Again, doesn't really tell you that this is going to be hard rock or metal. It's not even metal. It's hard rock, definitely. The only thing that tells you it's on Heavy Metal Records. Joanne Sim is the lead vocalist. She sounds really good, I think, on this. Like I said, a UK band. I really like it. There's a couple songs that I've put on the Spotify playlist that are my sort of favourite ones. But yeah, good solid album. I was actually really surprised because I only found out about this album a year or two ago. Someone actually on the on one of their YouTube channels that I watch was like doing a 10 least favourite records in my collection, and this was one of them that they showed, and I thought, I've never heard of it. And Heavy Metal Records. I thought, I'll just go check it out. Yeah, see how bad it is. And I was playing it, and I was like, actually, I like this. So yeah, I had to pick it up, and I think it's good. All right, next up, Romeo's Daughter, another UK band. Now, again, they're quite well known by who they had producing them. So they had a lot of production work from Mutt Lange, who of course has produced a lot of work, done a lot of work with Def Leppard, and also he does some of the songwriting. For me, the 2 best songs are Wild Child, which is a song that Heart covered. And it's a really good song. And also I Cry Myself to Sleep at Night, which was also released as a single. Yeah, also John Parr has helped out with production and songwriting as well. So a lot of big names on this one that could have helped them. They didn't, again, this came out in 1988, so I don't know. They didn't have big success, but, they did have, of course, Heart covering one of their songs on one of their successful albums. So that would have helped. And they released a follow-up album to this, but I don't think it came out until like 1993, so it's a little bit late. But yeah, I don't have that album, but this is a solid album, really good. All right, next up. Now this is an interesting one. This is Jody Bon Jovi. So yes, it's a relation of John Bon Jovi. So she is spelling her name like the official way of Bon Jovi's surname. That's how it's officially spelled, I think. Now, Jodie is the daughter, I think it's of Tony Bon Jovi, who's like John Bon Jovi's uncle. So Jodie is John Bon Jovi's cousin, I think. Anyway, yeah. So it's self-titled. There's a picture of the band there at the back. So that typical sort of 80s hard rock sort of metal band picture there. It's not that heavy, but there are some good songs on here. So they do a cover of the Jefferson Airplane song "Somebody to Love," which doesn't do much for me, but I do like the song "Emergency" and "Fantasy," which are the last songs on side 1 and the last song on side 2. I really like those songs. But, I guess some people have said, trying to cash in on Bon Jovi's name, by releasing that album. And it does sound, especially those 2 songs I like, they sound like a couple of songs that could have been on, early Bon Jovi albums. But some of the other songs not so good, and I think her vocals are fine. I think it's probably a bit unfair to say she's cashing in. Maybe she should not have called the album Jodie Bon Jovi. Maybe just given the band name, and she just happens to be the vocalist. But they might have actually had more success that way. But there we go. All right. Now, also just on the Jodie Bon Jovi, I don't know why, but I noticed that Jodie Bon Jovi's single "Somebody to Love" had a non-album track on it, and cut from the same stone. So I had to get that. I guess I couldn't hear the song online, so I thought, oh well, I'll buy it. It was cheap, So I'll buy it and see hear what the song sounds like, and hoping maybe it might be like "Emergency," one of the songs from the album I liked. It was pretty average, but there is a non-album. There's a song that didn't make the album that's on the B-side. If you really want to collect all your Jodie Bon Jovi, there we go. All right. And actually, now I've showed a 45. I'll show another one. This is the band Wild Blue and Fire with Fire. Now, so they have released an album. I don't have the album, but because it's quite a pop album, it's more of a pop rock album. But this song here, it's Fire with Fire, rocks pretty hard actually. I think it's a great song. 80s hard rock. We're not talking metal here, but female vocalist. I think they only put out the Wild Blue. They only put out the one album, and like I said, it's a bit of a pop rock album, so I haven't bothered with it. But I did want to pick up the 45 because I did really like the song Fire with Fire. So and it's from the motion picture Fire with Fire. It came out in '86. But yeah, that's if you like the female-fronted hard rock, check out that song. It's, I think, quite not very well known. And yeah, the band is Wild Blue, and the song is Fire with Fire. And I think that's on my Spotify playlist. Alright, last one up here for today, and then that'll be it for part 3. This is Smash Gladys and Social Intercourse. So this is their second album. I don't actually have their first album. This is their major label debut. Unfortunately, the vocalist Sally Cato died in 2020. But this is a really good album. Ozzy Osbourne actually does backing vocals on Cast of Nasties, which is a really good song. But other good songs, Play Dirty, that's a good one. Also, another little bit of interesting information is the band, not Sally, but the band are the backing band in the on the Run DMC Aerosmith Walk This Way music video, so you can see them a little bit in that. But yeah. All right. Well, that's it for part 3. Like I said, there's going to be more, so I will be back with a part 4 at some point. But hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you later. Okay, see ya.